Farmers are struggling due to the wet weather. Many gardeners have been wiped out by slugs, and my own issues have meant that pickings here have been rather slim. But can we stop this from happening again, and is there still time to save our gardens this year? Like most veg gardeners, I grow a lot of annual plants. Tomatoes, peppers, courgettes, French beans and sweet corn are delicious, but they are frost tender. That means we spend most of winter and early spring sowing our seeds. We spend all of April trying to harden them off until our last frost date, and then we dedicate that week to trying to plant our plants in the ground as quickly as possible. But that's literally putting all of your eggs in one basket. All the action is in that first week of May, and your time becomes a massive bottleneck. This year, a dog that was completely out of control decided to attack us at that crucial moment. It killed one of the chickens and it injured me when I leapt on top of the dog to try and stop it. Between chasing insurance, ringing solicitors, trying to get the police to investigate, hatching new chicks and allowing myself time to recover, I haven't produced many videos this year and meant that most of my plants dried out and died in their pots. But any illness, accident or just a wet April and May can mean all of your hard work gets wasted. So trying to force less through this bottleneck in the spring will make us less vulnerable to the weather and pests. But that also means changing how we view the growing season, because next year's season actually starts right now. And taken to the extreme, our garden planners probably shouldn't start in January, and instead they should start here. Because all of the plants that did well for me this year required very little effort, as they were already well established before the last frost. These are the seed packets laid out exactly as they were before the attack. I had planned on growing more varieties over winter anyway, so this is a good starting point to make sure that our gardens aren't empty next spring. We've got purple cauliflower, beetroot, kale and lettuce, all of which can be started again now and should produce harvests well into next year. But one crop I really want to talk about is chard. Chard is a low effort and extremely hardy plant that provides food basically all year round, and once established doesn't really get bothered by slugs. This plant here was planted in the spring and then chopped down to make way for the tomatoes, but it's bounced back and even gone to seed. It's basically unstoppable. I've had chard plants that have survived the record-breaking 40 Celsius summer, and unless it gets down to -10 again, chard can survive some bitterly cold winters. And let's not forget hardy crops like onion and garlic that don't draw much attention from pests. This garlic here should have come out a little while ago, but it's said to prefer the frost as that helps the bulb split into cloves. Hardy onion varieties like Shenshu are great options for overwintering. I'm going to grow more hardy plants like these over the next 2 months so that they're big and substantial enough to defend against slugs in the spring. And they should give the chickens and me some food to eat during the winter. While hardy biennials are great, this year I've had an enormous amount of food from perennial plants, but particularly from these summer fruiting raspberries. I didn't prune them and left them to do their thing, but they produced tons of fruit, and it looks like I'm about to get some more from the autumn canes. What's great about these plants is they're an investment. You do the work once and then leave nature to do the rest. It will grow the food and even propagate the plants. People talk about lazy gardening, but actually the best way is to use perennials like these. This grapevine was damaged by the wind and smothered by bindweed, but will probably still give me a harvest this year. It was also relatively cheap to buy. I only paid £10 for it. It did really well against the warmth of this brick wall, and I almost made my money back in that first year. This rhubarb was already here before I moved in, and it's quite literally indestructible. I've neglected this plant a lot, and I've even mowed and trimmed it a few times, but the rhubarb is still putting out a ton of food. And it's exactly the same with this horseradish and also this fennel back here in the strawberry patch. And this apple tree is even older. From historic maps, it looks like there's been a tree here for about 150 years. I doubt this one is quite that old, but it always produces a ton of fruit. Now, not all gardens are going to come with established perennials and trees, but they are a reliable and low maintenance way of growing food. And if you're happy to buy established plants online or in a garden centre, then it's a really smart choice. Growing plants that self-seed is another great way of reducing how much effort you need to put in next year. Plants like rocket, sometimes called arugula, are great at self-seeding and are really hardy. I sowed a pack of wild rocket seeds when I moved in 2.5 years ago, and it keeps coming back and pops up in random places all over the garden. A 60-gram bag of rocket with added pesticides costs about £1 to buy from the supermarket. It tastes awful and it lasts for about 5 minutes before it wilts. Meanwhile, organic seed costs about £2 and the plant keeps coming back. The leaves are freshest while attached to the plants, and it's available throughout the year, and the slugs don't seem to eat it. Rocket can be vulnerable to caterpillars and flea beetles, so I tend to grow plants like nasturtium nearby to act as decoy plants. The leaves and flowers of this companion plant are also edible, and it will readily self-seed, making this a low-effort pairing for plants that get attacked by pests. Another edible companion that I grow are marigolds, both the English and French kinds. English marigolds, or calendula, are not only edible, but they're much loved by pollinators, hated by pests, and they produce their own seed which will readily grow on its own. These ones here were self-seeded. That makes calendula a great choice for the resilient garden. As well as growing plants for next year and years to come, there's still plenty of time to grow annual plants for harvesting this year. Pretty much any salad, including lettuce, spinach, mizuna, and pak choi, can be grown from seed in the late summer and early autumn. And there's still time to sow a ton of root crops, including carrots, turnips and radishes, with the time to harvest dependent on the variety. And over the last couple of months, I've been experimenting with a late sowing of climbing beans, and I've been trying to grow a fast growing variety of sweet corn called Swift. Whether or not this will work for you will depend on your last frost date and if the weather plays ball. But sowing annual plants in repeat batches or succession sowing is a really important skill for becoming resilient to the weather and pests. We can also look at changing where we grow and how we manage our growing space to reduce pest pressure. What would probably help would be to remove the central grass strip and turn it into another growing bed. Then I could use wood chips in the walkways so that the clay soil doesn't get squishy and compacted over winter, or harden and crack in the summer and give the slugs another place to hide. And instead of letting grass grow longer, I'll focus on providing habitats in other areas of the garden. While I've seen frogs, lizards, owls and all sorts of insects in the garden this year, I really do want to move the slugs a little further away from my veg patch. I still want a wildlife-friendly garden, so my plan is to create more habitats around the edge of the garden. That means more of these mini wildflower meadows, and I'll let weeds do their thing, but far away from the veg. Of course, there are other ways of keeping pests at bay. I'm not going to use chemicals because I don't want to poison the garden or other animals, but I'd started going outside early in the morning and late at night to find and remove slugs, and it's made a huge difference. And earlier in the year, when my seedlings are still small and in their pots or in a greenhouse, I'll use barrier methods to stop them from getting eaten. In April, I spent a lot of time testing several materials for repelling slugs, including copper, wool and coffee. And 4 months later, it seems like I found a winning combination because some of my plants in pots haven't been touched. So click this video here to find out which slug controls worked, which ones were a waste of money, and as always, happy gardening.